I want to welcome you back into IGGY Sports Talk and introduce to you a new series that I wanted to start, which is called the Friends Series, where I showcase some of my best friends in the world and we have vulnerable conversations and try and make sort of these conversations normal. And not make it so weird for friends to be able to be vulnerable with each other and talk about these deep subjects. So I'm here with one of my best friends since we were like 5 years old or something like that, Jon Gaffney. But I just wanted to start off this conversation with a mental health check-in. I think this is something that's so important, and I feel like as men, we don't do it as much as maybe we should, just to make sure that everything is okay in each other's lives and being able to talk about these things.
I don't really know how to answer that question. It's like such an evolving question at all times. You know, like every day is different, like
right.
Ups and downs, of course, but like overall, I feel like I'm in a really good spot, especially relative to like maybe the last like 6 years of my life, like maybe post high school. I think like I'm probably at the best place I've been since high school's been over. Like whether that has to do with like my relationships or like what I'm doing for work or whatnot, like I don't really know, or maybe my own personal like the way I just like treat myself, I guess, mentally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot personally, even though there's ups and downs, obviously.
That's a good point, because him and I went to high school together and also middle school as well, but that stretch of time, I don't know why, I've been thinking about it a lot recently.
So much uncertainty. Really,
and especially like with the trying to figure out who you are, not only in high school but also in college. Reflecting on it, I feel like where I'm at right now in my life, I want to echo what you said. I feel like that this is the best mentally I've felt since high school, really maybe in my entire life, of just believing that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Exactly. I like, sorry to cut you off.
No.
But that's kind of what I was gonna say. Is like, even though I don't have anything like figured out by any means, and I know you can totally relate to this.
Right.
Like, you don't have anything necessarily figured out, and like what you're gonna do
Mm-hmm.
5 or 10 or 15 years from now.
Yep.
Like, you at least are content with like the path that you put yourself on, right?
Exactly.
Is that how you feel? At least?
Yeah,
That's
100%.
how I'm feeling currently. Is like, even though I don't really know what's up, I'm like comfortable with where I'm at and excited to keep pushing like on the path that I'm on.
And keep learning more about like what different passions you have as well.
Totally.
And also being able to meet new people, have new experiences. And I feel like that's one thing that I've learned over the last year and a half graduating from college is getting out of my comfort zone, because, you know, all throughout, you know, school and even high school and college, everything's relatively the same year in and year out. You know, you have a summer, then you go back to school from you know, September until June, and then it's the same cycle over and over again.
Now you're free balling it.
Exactly, and that's sort of how I've felt, is being able to get comfortable with having these responsibilities and realizing that I'm adult, which is really scary to say and accept.
For sure. I mean, I still don't think I'm an adult. I feel like a kid. I don't think I'll ever change. I think I'll be a kid at heart forever.
I feel that.
Obviously, there's responsibilities that are different now. But
right.
Like, I think I still have like that same mindset.
Yeah.
Of like, just like enjoying my time and like having fun and enjoying the people around me and trying not to get too caught up in the race.
I like that, because I feel like that's that feeling of the race and competing against other people and being able to have that realization, that acceptance that everybody takes their own path. There's no time limit in this life, you know. And I feel like, especially with you and I being 23 years old, and still in sort of the cycle of college and trying to figure out what our full career path is going to be, is that, you know, people have this idea that you have to be done with college, you have to figure out your job, you have to be married at all these certain times.
Totally.
But that's not the reality whatsoever.
Not at all. I mean, I didn't finish college. Like, I took a bunch of classes throughout like probably like 3 years after high school, but I never finished. I have plenty of friends who didn't finish who were totally like successful, content. Maybe they're not even successful, but they're just like, they'd rather take that path and they don't feel like the pressure. And that's how I've been feeling personally, is like, if you can make your own path and you don't need that, then you don't need that. Like, if you want to go back, like, you go back.
Exactly.
And that's how I feel. Like, I think with what I'm doing now, like the marketing and the sales and the real estate, all those sort of things, like, they don't really require a degree.
Right.
And I can do, like, I can be pretty successful at them,
Mm-hmm.
and like get to a comfortable spot at least. And then maybe if I want to go back and I feel like if there's a need to and I want to do something different, like, give myself that option. So that's kind of where I'm at about that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect mindset too, and also being able to use those opportunities that you currently have to try and pinpoint what lessons and skills you can focus on to grow for other things.
Exactly. Like, that's kind of how I felt my entire life, is like, I've never been good at school. I never really cared about my grades that much, to be honest. Like, I always felt like, and I would still learn a lot at school, and I'd like take class seriously, but I wouldn't care about like the results.
Right.
And that's kind of how I've been like living my whole life. I feel like, is always learning from experiences and things like that, and not caring about like the process, like the stuff that like is made up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
A's and B's.
Yeah.
It never mattered to me, but I still cared about like what was happening in social studies. Like, I still wanted to learn U.S. history, even though I didn't care about getting the A on my paper. Like, so I feel like I learn a lot through my jobs and like through the people I meet, through the activities I do. It's not necessarily learning from a book. You know?
Right, and I feel like that's something that I struggled with, especially at the end of my college career, is it was just so focused on the results, and it wasn't about the learning. And that was something that now in my work life I enjoy so much, is the relationships I get to make, the experiences I get to have, and especially like when I reflect and look back on some of the lessons that I've had over the last year, my first year of full-time work, it's pretty incredible to think back on how much I've learned compared to how much I learned, you know, in the 12 some odd years of schooling.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And like, when you're in school, you're kind of learning like a general idea of a lot of things, but like once you actually do a job, like, it's more niche. You understand like the actual hands-on of it all. Like,
Right.
Like, you can learn so much about journalism and this and that, but like, until you're holding the mic on the field with the Mass Pirates, you don't actually know what's happening. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you just have to learn it as you go, and you figure out what techniques work for you. Like, just to relate it back to what you do, like, what techniques work for you, like, what kind of questions are best to ask to get a really powerful response.
Yeah.
And like, those kind of little nuances that you can't get out of a book. Like, you have to do it in order to understand it.
I also feel like something that's like huge with that is like, every single time you do it, don't be too hard on yourself. You know, we're always our biggest critics, and that could be with anything. I'll
never forget my first few weeks at the restaurant. I work at a Japanese restaurant currently, a Japanese bistro, as a server. I was so nervous, it's absurd. Even because I just like didn't want to make a mistake or like act funny or who knows. And like, even when my girlfriend and her parents would come in for dinner, like, I'd just be so nervous.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the same thing for me, like being on camera, like the first ever time, and you know, we are the only ones that see these flaws or these insecurities. Nobody else does.
So much about yourself, and like, no one else is thinking about like the time you stuttered once. Like, no one thinks about that, and especially if you move on from it. Like, if you stay there and you keep thinking about it or talk about it, then like, it almost makes it more of a big deal, and it doesn't need to be. Like, I think it's okay to make mistakes. Like, that's just like something that people don't seem to talk about a lot. Like, making mistakes is so necessary.
I heard this cool quote. You know, sometimes people are like, "Oh, it's an L." Like, no, it's a lesson, not a loss. It's a lesson, because at the end of the day, you were able to use that experience to help you be better for the future and learn from it for the future. And I think especially with you know, hiccups or mistakes, I think that's so important, and not to, you know, dwell on those and really beat yourself up about it.
For sure. Yeah. Everything's a learning process.
1000%. And you know, you mentioned your interest in sales, marketing as well. You're also a server right now, but you're somebody who, you know, as talking about, you know, what your passions are, what you want to do for the rest of your life. You know, you've spoken about wanting to be a business owner, not only restaurants, but all other businesses as well. And I wanted to sort of focus with you talking about how you've been able to use a lot of your skills and passions to figure out different avenues in where you might want to go. Because I feel like I'm the similar way. You know, I have an interest in talking about sports and also mental health as well, but I have a lot of other interests as well, and it's difficult for me to pinpoint one singular job on where I'd be able to feel fulfilled with all of that.
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. Like I don't really have an answer straight up, but I guess that's kind of why I've done so many different things, is because like there's nothing, I mean, as far as I found so far, like there's not that one thing that like grabs me, and like I don't, there's people who at a young age are like, I'm gonna be a scientist, I want to study marine bio, and like I'm gonna learn about dolphins forever, and like I just love dolphins. I'm not like that. I don't like, I have so many different interests and passions and things that I love to do that I can't narrow it down to one thing. And so I think that's kind of why I've just like floated around and done so many different things over the last, literally the last 10 years, like just done so many random things. Like I've had probably 15 different jobs that did different shit. So I guess,
but they give you different experiences.
Yeah, they all give me different experiences, and I like learn lessons from some things that can translate to different things, but I still like wouldn't have had that idea if I hadn't done it. Like working in retail is like one of my favorites. Like working at a retail clothing store, I worked at Ralph Lauren and Tommy Hilfiger. Like the worst job ever.
Yeah.
You learn so much about people, about management, about how a business operates and functions, and like what it takes to run those kind of things. And like I don't know, I almost like look at everything as like a social experiment for me to analyze like what's happening.
I worked at J. Crew, and those Black Friday rushes are crazy.
We're absolute animals.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you learn a lot from it as well, and I feel
animals don't even act like that.
No. Yeah, especially when they see the 70-80% off deals, they really do turn into bigger than animals or just maniacs. I guess that's the right word to say. But for myself, I look at, you know, it's nice to be at like one specific job doing one specific thing for 20-30 years. That's what you're comfortable doing.
Some people crave stability. Right.
But in my book, I heard something, I believe it was Kevin Hart, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he sort of said like, what does your book look like? And I heard from somebody else as well, you know, life comes in chapters. So you can really have different chapters in your life of what you want to focus on, what passions you want to you know, strive for, and you don't really have to do one singular thing for the rest of your life, because in all reality, I mean, it's kind of a ticking time clock, and we all get 100 years, so how are you going to use it?
That's generous. 100 years.
Yep.
You could die tomorrow.
You really could die tomorrow. But who knows? I mean, with our age, you know, maybe it's 120, 150. Who knows?
Yeah, right. No, but on that point, though, like, I totally agree. Like, you don't have to know what you want to do. You don't have to decide on one thing. Like, you can do anything you want to do.
Right.
You know, you don't have to define yourself and put yourself in a box like that.
Each day.
You don't want to. I mean, it's totally normal. Like, I totally respect all my friends who went to college, got a solid job. They make good money now. They have to grind 40 hours a week and like do their thing, but like, good for them. They got it down. Like they got part of the step that's like into adulthood. Like they're doing that thing. And so if that's what you want to do, like, mad respect to you.
And that's one thing that like I've tried to not judge with people is everybody has their own idea of what makes them happy. And you know, for me, it's being able to have a job that I feel fulfilled with, and you know, the money factor isn't so important to me as it might be for other people, but at the same time, that's how you survive at the end of the day. But I think especially being able to pinpoint what passions you have and try and find ways that you can make that into a job and be able to wake up every day and be excited about what you're going to do, I think is super important.
For sure. And like, I guess in that I'm like interested in so many different things, I'm blessed that I can find like that kind of love and like passion in so many different things. Like I genuinely love going into the restaurant every day and like working there. Like, excuse me,
just got attacked.
Yeah, like the customers, the staff, like everyone who works there really does make me just happy to work there, and like I'm thankful for it. It pays pretty decent for a job of like this level, and like I'm thankful for it all the time, and I learned so much, and it makes me want to like do things like that when I'm older, like own a restaurant, or
Right.
I've thought about being like a private chef or stuff like that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And especially like not limiting yourself to anything. I mean, that's like for myself, like, you know, one of my dreams is to be a sports reporter. I've done that so far, and now being able to, you know, I would love to own my own coffee shop. You know, I've worked at Dunkin' Donuts, you know, since high school, and I think it's so cool being able to have the ability to put a smile on somebody's face and start their day right with just a cup of coffee. And also like the whole vibe of a coffee shop, of just like relaxation and being able to do your homework there and all that sort of stuff.
Think about how many times like you, Taylor, like anyone, like we just like spent so much time at Union in particular.
Yeah.
At Milford, and like it's just like it brings people together for sure. It's just like a quiet, like safe space where you can like have conversation, get work done, like just relax. Coffee shops are so important, for real.
Exactly. And that's like one thing that also like I think I've tried to do a lot with you and Taylor and a lot of my other friends is you know when I notice like some of your passions or you know something that you're excited about, I try and do my best, you know, hype you up or let me know how I can help in any way, you know what I mean?
Ultimate fucking hype man. This guy like idea machine.
I try. It's well when we get to Union, I don't know what's up with that coffee, but it makes my brain work.
Sips of coffee, this guy just spits out ideas like nonstop.
But I feel like that's so important to be able to have, you know, those people around you who can do that, because different ideas, different opinions, different experiences can help an idea like really expand into something greater than you could have even imagined. And I think being able to have, you know, conversations like this, vulnerable, deep conversations about stuff that you want to do is so important. And I actually heard this question yesterday from a TED Talk, and like it got me choked up just from how deep it was. But what do you want to do before you die? And if you were to die tomorrow, what stuff would you do? And I heard that.
If I knew I was dying tomorrow, what would I do right now?
And I heard
straight up, all I would do for the next 24 hours if I was dying tomorrow is call every person I love.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I like that. That's what some of the other people said, and I thought it was just like a really interesting way in perspective to have, because you know, I sometimes watch Steve Jobs. He had like a graduation speech at Stanford, and you know, he's like, what if every morning you looked in the mirror and thought, you know, what if I died today? How would I live today? And being able to have like that mindset right when you wake up, especially like when sometimes when you wake up, the anxiety creeps in of like, why do I have to go to work today? Why do I have to do this instead of I get to do this?
Why can't I just lie in bed being comfortable?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
so true.
I think as well, like being able to use external forces to help you be able to lift yourself up. Obviously healthy ones, but you know, something that you and I talk a lot about is, you know, the deeper parts of sports, the deeper aspects of sports. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I love working in sports is there's so many things where it's just bigger and deeper than you know, baseball or football. And
Sure.
something
You put it in perspective for me last week. Like we just talked about this not long ago. Like last week you told me about the guys who, like, this guy's son died, and like they played catch all the time, so then him and the son's buddies would like play catch to heal and like talk and have like conversations sort of like these or whatnot, or just help them grieve. And like then it had me thinking about all the times that like sports were the medium for me to make deeper connections with other people. Like during quarantine, for example, like I would go over to my cousin's house and we couldn't have contact, quote unquote, during COVID. So we'd play lacrosse like across the yard, and like those were just such great times. Like it wasn't like obviously playing lacrosse is fun, but like it's being with the people who you love to be with, and like it helps you make like those deeper connections. And like on the way back from the Red Sox game, like a couple months ago, just playing some ball with you at a random park, like for
made me feel like 10 again.
Yeah, it makes you feel like nothing else matters. Like you're just really in the moment, enjoying like the person. You're really more like, obviously the game itself is fun, but like every time I'm playing sports, I'm just thinking about like the people who I'm having fun with.
I think like that's something that like I love about like my job is like the connection that fans and like athletes have, and also teams as well, because one of my favorite things is like when a guy who has been with an organization for a long time comes back for the first time, and you just see the emotion of
it's like it's like a romantic feeling. Like sports make you like, they make you hate, they make you love, they make you like, because it's really a medium for all these other things to happen. Like the sports are there, but it's all the other things in the background that make them what they are.
Right.
That's so powerful, and like the impact that they can have on someone's life, whether that be healing from someone who died who you loved and like you played catch with them, or someone like LeBron James, who's like an ultra wealthy billionaire who sponsors schools and all these organizations that he's built and like helped change lives that way. Like it's just sports are insane, and I think a lot of people like don't credit it to that sense. Like they just think of sports as big brawny guys who like beat each other up on the football field. Like, it's so much deeper than that. And I don't know, sports are just cool.
Yeah, I mean that's why I love like being able to like showcase like the deeper parts of it, because even something as like a little kid being able to have the opportunity to meet like his idol or something like that, or something that happened yesterday at the Worcester Red Sox. There was a kid who dealt with kidney failure and all that sort of stuff, and he had the opportunity to run the bases and get high fives with all the players, and just to see the emotion that not only he had but his mother had, his family had and thinking back on like that dark time and how there really is light at the end of the tunnel.
Totally.
I think being able to be aware of those and appreciate those is so important.
And then not even to mention like the fact that like playing sports literally makes you feel good. Like you get energy out, you like release endorphins, and you feel better after you exercise. And like the whole psychology behind sports are fascinating to me. Yeah,
me too. I love it. But to conclude this conversation and to give people some insight on what myself has learned, what you have learned from we can say in the last year. I wanted to end it giving sort of like what advice would you give to people, or what lesson have you learned so far in 2022 that you feel like would be really valuable for people to know? I can start, and I'll allow you to think about it. So for me, it's one area of life that I find very difficult to accept and be able to deal with is the unknown. And that's been ever since I started my senior year, and I thought when I graduate I have to figure out what I have to do, but that there's so much unknown with that. And being where my feet are, being grateful with the things that I have in the present moment, and remembering that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and everything else will fall into place, and all I really have to do is show up every day, do my best, be in action to try and have a little bit more clarity on what the future might hold. Obviously when I say like everything will fall into place, if you just sit on your couch and don't do anything about it and just hope that things will happen, nothing's going to happen. But being able to not be anxious about that unknown and allow it to bulge you down, I think is so important.
I like that. That's a really good one. For me, one of the biggest things I've learned in 2022, it's like, I'd say it's pretty cliche, but like really just to enjoy the journey and not always be fixated on like the end goal. For a long time, like I'd beat myself up about like maybe like not really having an end goal or like a goal of what I wanted to be or to do. I still have no clue half the time.
Right.
Like everything can change. So like just really being like open to, like, it sounds pretty cliche, like just being in the moment and like really like being thankful and experiencing everything you're going through on the journey has been huge for me. And also I guess sort of the opposite of that at the same time. Like I used to not really be a goal setter, and like not actually more relates to what you said a few minutes ago. It's like setting goals but not being like this is an entire lifelong thing, like having goals for maybe it could be any increment of time. Like you want to do something within a month, something like read a book, like that's a great goal to have. Or maybe you want to be a reporter, so you have like a 5-year goal and you want to be like doing this in 5 years, but like not being, I felt like having goals was like trapping myself, but it's possible to like do that and have smaller term goals and like and enjoy the journey along the way, obviously, and just sort of have that. So I don't know, I guess
yeah, I agree.
The last couple of years have just been a big flip in my outlook, my positivity, just like the way that I go about my life.
Yeah.
And just trying to really make the best out of everything, and not be too hard on myself along the way.
Yeah, that's so important, man. And especially with like goals, like that's one thing, you know,
Exactly.
you can have defined goals, but if they're too defined, there's times where you can get upset if it doesn't work out. And if you make it a little bit more broad but still defined in some aspect, there's still a little bit of there's a lot more ways that you can achieve that goal. And if it's not so, you know, I have to work for this job, this position, and if I don't get that, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, those aren't my kind of goals. Super structured. Like more, I guess the goals that I had to set for myself mostly over the last like couple of years was like personal, like mental well-being goals, like not being just something as simple as like not being negative or sad or stuff like that. And so I started with like cutting out sad music. Like I don't really listen to any sad music or like depressing music much anymore, because like that sort of just triggers that mindset for me.
Yeah.
And puts me in a negative spot, and then I just like can't be positive about anything.
Yeah.
So like just trying to like set my like not trick my brain, but like your brain's interesting in the sense that you almost have to like trick it to do things and like use patterns and like repeat certain things, like like scheduling.
Yep.
You know, like the more you schedule, the more your brain becomes used to that schedule, and then you are able to function on it better. Like getting up at 8 a.m. every day is really hard the first time.
Yep.
Once you do it 100 times, it's habit.
Yep.
And like kind of things like that for me have been what I've been trying to work on.
And you're the one that programs your mind. You're the one that paints the reality for yourself. Hopefully.
That's an important piece.
Very true. But I loved this conversation. I think a lot of people would take a lot out of this. But
I wish we had more time.
Yeah, I know. I wish too. But we'll definitely do this more often. I want to get more of my friends on the podcast and be able to showcase more of these vulnerable conversations. You know, maybe one time I'll just set up a microphone and put 3 of us like in a circle or something like that, and act like the camera's not even there. But look forward to the rest of these Friends series. I'm super excited to start showcasing you know, these conversations and being able to continue to build up IGGY Sports Talk and continue to inspire and help other people. But greatly appreciate everybody tuning in as always, and see you next time.
Big shout out to Iggy.